in West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spend most of my days. Let's get down to business, everyone. So I watched Bel-Air. I actually watched it when it aired, like last week or the week before that. I can't remember. I'm just going to say right now, I did not like the format of this new Bel-Air show. It's basically a reboot of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with William Smith or Willard. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about the slap. If you want to know my opinion about the slap, go to my Twitter. I speak very clearly. I am literally not going to make a single video. I was going to talk about it and I was going to make a video about it, but I'm just not. I just don't have the energy to continuously talk about it. But what I will be doing is talking about this Bel-Air situation. So now before we get started at all, I would like to talk about what a remake, a reboot, and a revival is. A remake is something that is remade specifically to fix problems that they couldn't solve or confront in the past, like graphics, altering stories to make them better suit the political climate. Remakes are for the people who read, watched, played movies, shows, games. For example, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has been remade countless times. Remakes occur in the Resident Evil franchise a lot. And even though it's remade for a different audience, it's supposed to hold true to what happened before, though it doesn't. Example, Resident Evil 3 remake is way different than the original Resident Evil 3. A lot of things were cut out. A lot of things were added. A revival is when you revive something from where you last left off. For example, King of the Hill, I hope that it's not a reboot or a remake. I hope it is a revival so that we can continue the story that we left off on. A reboot is kind of like a revival and a remake put together, except it redoes a few things. Like, okay, Cobra Kai is a revival of Karate Kid. It's not a reboot and it's not a remake because it keeps the same lore. We are supposed to take what happened and at full value, not just face, at full entire value that it has happened and that it affects this timeline. So Bel-Air is not a revival. Bel-Air is not a remake. Bel-Air is a reboot because it reboots everything and changes a lot. Reboots change a lot of things. For those who don't know, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was about, we're supposed to believe that all of these people who are adults clearly, for the most part, are children. And I don't know if they were our children when they just started the show, but they look like adults. They look like adults for the most part. Like Hillary and Carlton and Will all look like adults. But it was basically a comedy sitcom. The story of a boy who got in a fight in the streets and his mom sent him out to his rich cousins who he didn't know were rich, apparently. And it's basically like a culture clash between quote unquote hood and like classy society. It talked a lot and it had a lot of commentary, constructive commentary about the Black experience when it comes to having money and not having money. They did a lot that I liked and a lot that I didn't like because there was no payoff to showing what happened. So I'll talk about what I mean when I get to the character that I didn't necessarily like in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the original. I will be referring to Bel-Air as Bel-Air. I will be referring to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as the Fresh Prince. So when I compare and contrast them, that's how you know what I mean when I say it. Before I can get into my overall arching opinion of the story and if I think it was a good reboot, I have to go down the list of characters that were in it and what changed and if the change was good or bad. Simple. So let's talk about Will first. I would like to say the man or the boy who plays Will Smith in Bel-Air, he was handpicked by the original Will Smith. Like, I think he was handpicked because he had his mannerisms. He was awesome. He did a fantastic job. I think he did better than the real Will Smith because, like I said, in The Fresh Prince, it was a comedy. Bel-Air is not a comedy at all. There are funny moments, but it is very much so a drama. There's no canned laughter like there was in Fresh Prince. Things don't just happen because it's silly. And a lot of silly things happen later on in the series, but usually sitcoms kind of just dissolve into silliness for nothing's sake. Example, Roseanne. Roseanne was a good show that had commentary on class situations, the rich versus the poor versus the even more poor. And like I said a long time ago, I'm not really a fan of Roseanne, but Roseanne the show was such a great before its time situation, and there were a lot of things I didn't like about that. I'm not going to talk about that here. But Bel-Air's Will Smith was better than the Will Smith in the comedy because Will Smith was a womanizer. He had girls coming in and out. When he was going to be married to Lisa, he straight up cheats on her and acts like it's fine because he thinks she's cheating when it's like cheat for cheat. Literally just don't be with her, you freaking idiot. And that goes for women too, you freaking idiots. All of you idiots. If they cheat, just leave. Like, why are you going to be a part of this clown circus show? It's so dumb. But anyway, the Will Smith of Fresh Prince was so much better. So much better. I liked that he actually cared about Lisa. And what I didn't like, I'm going to talk about Lisa real quick because I'm not going to really dig deep into her. I may do like a little side bit every time she comes into play. But what I'm going to say right now about Bel-Air was it was too fast. Everything happened too fast. I had to look it up online to see when Will met his father in the series of Fresh Prince. And it was season 4. He had already been there for 4 years. Or more, depending on how many years went by per season. I just assume because he eventually goes to college. He eventually gets out of high school and goes to college. He eventually, grows up in Fresh Prince. But in Bel-Air, they're moving everything too quickly. We meet Lisa far too quickly. Adding the whole freaking your father's a cop is kind of dumb with Lisa's situation. Because I don't recall that having an impact on Will like that. And if you did want to have him have an arc of being with a girl with a cop father and he just got arrested or whatever. And that's another thing. In Fresh Prince, Will was very street smart. This Will that's in this drama is not street smart at all. He's like, oh, I come from the streets. But the reason why he stays and gets caught and goes to jail in the first place is because he didn't run. I would imagine the Will from Fresh Prince would have ran before getting caught, and just everything's different about them. I say that the Will from Bel-Air is better because he's no longer a womanizer. He's no longer a loser. But it kind of takes away from the fact that he had a place to go and grow. He could have started out as a womanizer. And like I said, bringing in Lisa, that character could have been another girl. Lisa was not introduced right away. In fact, he had very much so a vast amount of girls going in and out of his life. And yes, if you don't want to talk about that, that's fine. But then why do a reboot if you're not going to do most of what Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is about? Will Smith's journey. It's not about Hillary Banks. It's not about, it doesn't have to be about anybody. It's about his life with the people around him just so happening to be there. So doing this thing where everybody's kind of different and then there's a different lens through the Black experience, like I said, with Lisa's father being a police officer, where do we go from here? There's nowhere to go from here with Will not being a womanizer. He has no place to grow. He's just going to be a nice guy throughout the whole thing. I would have liked if he wasn't a good person and decided to grow, but because of the aggression that he receives from everybody else, it's hard to see him in a light that's not sympathetic. And I think that was a weak point of Bel-Air. So, like I said, Lisa should have been omitted completely from this season, especially since the season was so short. This season was super duper the freak short. Made no sense why it was so short. It was 9 episodes. I don't care how long your shows are. I really don't. 9 episodes is way too small, especially since you added everything together. Like I said, season 4 of The Fresh Prince was when Will met his father, who was a deadbeat, and then he ran out on him. And with that whole situation where he met his Marlon Wayne's brother's father, I was upset that it was not Will Smith who was playing his father. Everybody kind of guessed that it was going to be him, but it wasn't. I'm disappointed that he didn't play the father. That would have been just like the icing on the cake. I don't know why Wayne brother number 2 is here, or whatever his name is. I really don't know who he is particularly. I just know I know him from different movies that are comedies. So when I saw him in that serious role, it was really easy to take him seriously because he's a good actor. He's not just funny and like mediocre like a lot of these Anglo-Saxons who we keep seeing, like Adam Sandler and all these people who keep getting roles somehow. They're mediocre. They can't play serious roles, and I can't take them seriously. I can actually take this dude seriously. He surprised me, and that's great. But they rushed way too quickly through this season for it to only have 9 episodes. We already met Lisa, who William is supposed to marry canonically. He's supposed to marry Lisa. This is the Lisa he's supposed to marry. Then we meet his father in like the last episode of this first season, when he didn't meet his father until he's already been in Bel-Air for a while. There was no reason to put all that in one thing, like deadbeat dad and cop father and all that with the girl that you're supposed to marry. How is that supposed to work? There was no reason to have that. Yes, Will in The Fresh Prince had a thing with his father, and then it was crazy. It turned into a crazy stuff, and that dude was from Good Times. If you remember the father from Good Times, I do believe that was her father, but I can't remember. They changed people a lot. Even though I understand that not everyone can reprise their role, but it's like kind of difficult to grasp who's who when they literally like put the same actors and actresses in different roles in the same show. So it's hard to remember who was who when they were them. But anyway, I'll talk about Will as I go along, but those are the biggest gripes I have about William. His whole story was too quick. Just came out of the slammer, went to Bel-Air, literally gets this dude, and the dude that tries to kill him, I think they kill him too quickly. The guy that is trying to kill Will, he doesn't have to have any issues because everything is given to him. That's why the end is kind of annoying for him to run away, because his dad doesn't love him or whatever when his mom does. And he's got a rich uncle that's housing him for free and got him out of jail. I think that's really jerkish of Will to do, and not jerkish in the way that he was in Fresh Prince, but jerkish in a way that I can no longer support him as a character. Like I said, the actor did a fantastic job. His mannerisms are to the T. You watch Fresh Prince and then watch one episode of Bel-Air. He is the best Will Smith you could have ever found. I applaud him. He's the best. He's the best. I'm telling you right now, he is the best. So let's go on to the next person that I would like to discuss. And this is annoying a little to me because Carlton, he was a very good actor in this role. I could believe him and I hated him. But in Fresh Prince, him distancing himself from the Black experience wasn't because he was a pick-me. It wasn't because he was a pick-me. It was because he was selfish and greedy. Those were two aspects that Carlton had. He didn't want the approval of a white person because he preferred white people. Carlton wanted anyone's approval if it got him money or power. And I think that's something that they took away from the Carlton that made me not believe his story. And then they made him a druggo when Carlton didn't even want to take supplements. Like he was drugged by mistake because he wanted to take some pills that Will had, and he didn't know that it was speed or something. That's a whole thing too. With the drug and Carlton thing in Bel-Air, I feel like it was mismanaged. Because in The Fresh Prince, it was clearly evident that his relationship with drugs was very much so, even though it was a comedy, there were some serious moments, was established. Carlton was a Weasley, conniving little weasel, but he was also a stick in the mud and a straight arrow. He always kept his ducks in a row unless those ducks were impeding his ability to gain money and power. And eschewing Carlton's character in Bel-Air was in turn a bad thing in execution. And yes, even though Will is not a womanizer, it goes to show that both of these things that were eschewed in their characters to make them quote unquote better or deeper didn't work, because we have nowhere to go from here. Like I said, all we can do in later seasons of Bel-Air is see Carlton relapse. We didn't see how he became that way. Will's inclusion in the family could have contributed to him falling into drugs, but that didn't happen. He was already doing drugs before Will got there. It's just these two things specifically are good examples of them taking a little piece of what happened in The Fresh Prince and not executing it properly, at least for us to go forward. Carlton being a druggo in this show in Bel-Air was just the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and not believing his situation. How are you going to be rich and say, I have anxiety, like you're rich? Get over it. Get yourself some therapy. Buy some therapy. Why are you buying drugs that cost more than therapy? And even if he was doing drugs, and I'm not saying that high class, low class, whatever, the Kardashians do whatever they do. But what I'm saying is I just felt like there was no reason to bring in the white powder when it came to, especially since we're doing this whole Black excellence thing. That was never in Fresh Prince. So I don't know why it was in Bel-Air. It made no sense. And like I said, he preferred the company of white people in Bel-Air because he's a pick-me and he's a I'm not like other Black people person. When Carlton had an issue with people who were pro-Black because he was delusional and thinking that his struggle was the same as any other Black person's struggle because he identified and knew himself to be Black. Now, the Bel-Air Carlton distanced himself from being Black, acted like it wasn't even a factor in being dumb. He was just being dumb, and that just didn't make sense to me. I did not like how they made Carlton, and I'm taking a point off for the fact that Carlton was like that because there was just no reason. You could have had a character like that. You could have, and it didn't have to be Carlton. Just like the cop father did not have to be Lisa. Will had, I can count right now, names, specific names of the girls he dated, 5 of them that were not Lisa. So there was no reason to start your Bel-Air, your Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot with him already meeting Lisa, the woman he is supposed to marry by the end of all of this. So that's that on that. I'm going to talk about someone that was very annoying to me. The girls were annoying to me, and this has to do with men not being able to write women and not being able to direct women either, because if it wasn't the writing that made Hillary and Ashley literally the worst on the show, it was definitely not their acting, because they were superb. What else can they do? They were given all they had. Someone isn't pulling their weight, and it wasn't them. But I'm going to talk about Hillary real quick, and I'm going to talk about Jazz with Hillary because that's basically a synonymous situation. So first of all, let's talk about how Hillary acted in Fresh Prince. So Hillary was an airhead, light-skinned girl who looked nothing like any of the parents. And yes, dark-skinned people can have light-skinned children, but I just think that's really interesting. It's whatever, it is what it is, and there was no implications of calling a light-skinned girl dumb for dumb's sake. There was no implications of her like that. It was kind of like my wife and kids situation. But I didn't really care that Hillary was dumb. I would have been fine if Hillary was dumb in Bel-Air. And I actually will make a case that she still is. But Hillary was dumb. Even though she had money and she had street sense, she knew about birth control. She had more sense than someone that you would think would be dumb. Luann Platter from King of the Hill. She outsmarted her. She had her own show. She was just dumb. And it was like kind of like a joke thing. Like I said, everything was made for jokes, but it had commentary. Mostly her stuff went under the rug because it's Will's story. And Will was literally the almost polar opposite of Hillary. The hyper masculinity that Will Smith had, aside from the whole feminine jokes that he would make or flamboyant jokes that were supposed to be funny. But above all, Hillary's arcs had to do with her being rich and her being excess. It was what it was. I didn't need anything extra from Hillary's character, and I definitely did not need her to be dark-skinned. Oh, we got the right person for the job. Oh, really now? What is the job? Because everything that Hillary was is no longer here. So it wasn't best person for the job. It was best person for what role you wanted her in. Not Hillary, but something different. And the reason I think Hillary is still dumb is because in Bel-Air, she leaves her mom's house not because they kicked her out like in Fresh Prince, but because she wants to go out on her own and struggle, like her mom said she wanted to struggle, which I'll talk about that in a bit too. But she wanted to struggle on her own in a hype house type of situation. You never enter a house with a bunch of people, especially if you're the only black person there. That's like rule number one. But Hillary's going to go struggle on her own, and then when she can't get out of a certain situation, instead of using money, she decides to struggle it out with another girl who is cheating. As far as I can tell, the girl that she's working with as of the end of the show is cheating with Jazz. She keeps sleeping with Jazz and being in hotel rooms. Hillary in Fresh Prince was very friendly with guys, and it's not like she had diseases or anything. She literally practiced safe sex. She talked about it very loosely here and there. And she was just a pillar of femininity. And she wasn't slut-shamed for having a lot of boyfriends. She would always be going out on dates because she liked to have fun. But this Hillary isn't someone who's fun. See, in the beginning, I thought she would be like that, and she felt like that. But the moment Jazz came into the situation, I feel like whoever made this story, if it wasn't Will himself, who's behind Bel-Air, literally, I know the man who made the script was not Will Smith. So I'm just convinced whoever was behind Hillary's arc specifically saw the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air a long time ago and was like, man, F women, forget y'all, let me complain and boo-hoo. And now he finally has the power to make Hillary like Jazz, only for Jazz to cheat on her and be mean to her. He literally gives her no incentive. He's just better looking than the other Jazz. He gives her no incentive to like him. And literally, shut up to everybody who wants to talk about a black woman and how it's classist to want something better. It's always black women who have to not have good things. We always have to struggle love. We always have to take the broke bums who are still cheating on us anyway. And like I said, Jazz, I think is cheating. I have evidence to believe so. He was staring at that girl a little too long. And even Hillary looked like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening here? Y'all are going to blame her and say, well, they shouldn't be hooking up in no hotel. Bring him to the house. Bring him to her house. If the rules were reversed, let's see. And the rule, actually, I don't have to do no hypothetical. The rules are always reversed. It's only when girls do something or women do something that you guys have a problem with it. And then you want to talk about equal value. I'm not going to engage in this conversation about garbage. Hillary should not have gotten with Jazz at all. And now the guys who wanted her to be with Jazz because they thought she was too stuck up are going to use this dark-skinned black woman to give her struggle love when Hillary was going on dates after dates with rich, wealthy, respectable men, and they could have all been black, but you don't see it like that, do you? You either see Hillary being with a white, rich man or a poor black man, and that says a lot about you. That says a lot about you, because when they were at that mega alpha place where they were like, ooh, it's cold in here. There must be some alphas in the atmosphere. I said, ooh, like There were a lot of respectable, I suppose rich, wealthy to some degree, black men. You could have had Hillary go on countless dates. That could have been a whole side story. But no, you're going to sexualize her with no payoff. Literally, she gets sexualized like 3 times with no payoff. Nothing for her, actually. And then we just hear that she has this new deal that I've never seen. We don't see this new deal she gets from the opportunity of being sexualized 3 times. Then you have broke man Jazz in her ear talking, making her feel bad about taking an opportunity that will get her more money. When he says he's got a shop or whatever, we only see him working there once, and they make it seem like he owns that place. So how does he get to be off all the time and hang out with Hillary all the time at a hotel if he owns it and he's not just an employee, make a wage? If she was going to be sexualized at all, the least she could have done was actually had dates and actually had meaningful relationships with people. But now she's just going to hotels with Jazz. That was so dumb. I'm taking a point off for Hillary as well, because I think this new Hillary's terrible. I think the fact that you made her like Jazz is terrible. And they're like, oh, there's no reason except she comes from a wealthy family. You expect her to be with Jazz, who is literally living in some walk-up? Do you guys not remember the Fresh Prince, how he was living? Oh, this, that, and the other, nothing. Literally nothing. Let Hillary be with someone who is wealthy and shut up. Jazz is just a bug. And it's not because he's broke. It's because he acted like a bug. In Fresh Prince, he most certainly did. There's nothing good about Jazz. In fact, he pretended to be a deacon or a man of the cloth or something so that Will could marry a girl and have sex with her and then never talk to her again. That's the Jazz that I know. This new Jazz that just looks a little bit better, who actually has a business that he has, or I don't know if he has a business or he's working there. We literally don't know. He says, oh, my shop or whatever, but dang, for his shop to be his shop, he sure ain't there like 90% of the time. We saw him in there once working, and he wasn't even selling nothing. He was just talking to Hillary. Stop trying to make black women be with bums. Simple, easy, simple. Also, Jazz already being in LA kind of defeats the purpose of Jazz's character in The Fresh Prince. In The Fresh Prince, Jazz was there on the basketball court when freaking what's-his-face got beat up outside school and a couple of guys up to no good in the hood happened, okay? So I just don't understand why Jazz is in LA to begin with. And maybe because it kind of just is strange that Jazz is so close to their home enough to be walking back and forth. And Bel-Air is supposed to be something that was far away from his hood life in Philly. But it didn't matter. I don't think Jazz should have been in LA already. They should have rode away for Jazz to have been able to be coming from Bel-Air to wherever he was. And I think he did move over there eventually. But another thing, sidebar, Ice Tray. The whole Ice Tray debacle was dumb. It was dumb for dumb's sake. Yes, he had an issue in falling out with Ice Tray in Fresh Prince. But the way they treated it in Bel-Air was like you either poor and my friend or rich and not. When your friend's rich now, y'all can go do stuff. Stop having these petty quarrels when you literally have a friend that is rich. It's a cold day in HE double hockey stick when someone is going to say, I can't be your friend because you're rich. And then they go back to their podunk place. That's not logical. That doesn't make any sense. He would sooner pretend to like Will than say with a straight, bold face that he will never talk to him anymore because he's rich now. And he forgot where he came from. That's BS, and that's some struggle logic that some black dude created for the show Bel-Air, and it's dumb. It makes no sense. So stop. I do not like this new Jazz either. I don't care if he looks better or what. He's still a jerk, and I know he's cheating on Hillary. And why are they sitting there at freaking hotels, rolling around in the bed? Hillary is better than that. And we can talk about what's classist when we are out of this society, this capitalist society. You expect black people to just stop doing capitalism while everyone else gets capitalism so that we fall behind even more so than we already are. Because legislation that has put us back, and you've got banks denying black people loans because what reasons? I'm not going to have this discussion. Hillary deserves better than what you gave her. And Ashley deserves better than what y'all gave her. So she was a dark-skinned black girl. She was what represented me when I was watching The Fresh Prince. A girl who everyone treated like a child, even when she got older. Telling me how to dress. Telling me what to do. It's like Chloe Bailey. She cannot do nothing without y'all telling her she need to put clothes on. She is a grown woman. Mind your business. Go to your mother. Tell her that. Tell her to put on some clothes and see what your mother say. If she don't slap the smack out of you. But Ashley was such a good example of how dark-skinned black girls are treated in the black community. We can't do nothing unless we're told. When we do something that's out of that whole situation, she was very rebellious. I loved how rebellious she was. Her story was perfect. What I hated about Fresh Prince, about Ashley, was there was no payoff for her rebellion. She was always punished. She was never told the reasons why she couldn't do this and that and the other. It was a little bit better when we had the original Vivian Banks, dark-skinned black woman. I like her way better. I'm not going to talk about what happened between her and Will. I'm just going to say massage noir. But it was a little better when the dark-skinned black woman was Vivian Banks. But when the light-skinned woman, when she just literally let freaking Philip run all over her and raise the children how he wanted and not have any opinion of her at all whatsoever, Ashley was alone. She was alone. Will even made her feel small. There was never a point where she was like, I'm my own person and y'all can't do nothing about it. Everybody was overbearing over her, and Hillary did nothing to help her. Hillary did nothing. She didn't care. She was like her sister. And it was horrible because Hillary was coddled as an adult. And she got to do whatever. Like I said, she was very promiscuous. Hillary was very promiscuous, and she did not hide it. The only time Philip had a problem with her promiscuity was when she tried to do Playboy or something. It was going to be a naked photo, and it was a naked photo. It was just covering her up. He went to a convent. It was really ridiculous. It was hilarious and dumb at the same time. But she was an adult, and she should have been able to do adult things, because she would weigh the consequences on herself. But actually, no matter what age she was at, she never had agency, and she never had any guidance towards the right thing. So her rebelliousness kept going into the wrong things, like she went to a party with all these grown-ups, because at this time, she's been told no for everything and no reason why. It was because I said so. Bark, bark, bark from Philip. So that's not how you raise a daughter, and that's especially how black girls are treated. So when we get older and we get agency, like Chloe Bailey, we do what we want, and that's outside of the norm because we're always expected to do as we're told, even as an adult, even as grown women. And that's what was lacking with Ashley's character in The Fresh Prince. There was no payoff to her following the rules. There was no payoff to her doing what she needed to do until she was an adult. Hillary was given a lot of grace to do what she wanted as an adult and as a teenager. Hillary was able to do as she pleased, and she was light-skinned. Ashley was dark-skinned and was not able to. It was interesting, and I wouldn't change that dynamic, but I would give Hillary more of a sisterhoodness to Ashley. in Bel-Air. That's not what we saw either, and it's not like she needed it in any way. Ashley in Bel-Air is gay or bisexual, and we only see that for like 1 or 2 episodes. It was kind of like something that they threw in there at the end, and some people didn't like it, and my opinion about it is, when I was young, Ashley represented me. So I understand that Ashley represents the young person today who they're literally making legislation to stop gay people from even existing in spaces at school. Like, I knew I was straight when I was a kid because I had boy crushes. If you have girl crushes and you're a girl, or you have boy crushes and you're a boy, it's not good to say that you can't have those crushes. People are acting like they're literally doing something inappropriate in school. To acknowledge a crush is literally what you do for straight kids, so why can't you do that for gay kids? Because you don't want people to be gay. Just say that. Freaking scrubs. Hate you. But the whole situation goes out the window for Ashley to even be remotely close to how she was in Fresh Prince, because she's no longer a dark-skinned girl. She's like light-skinned, but not as light as Hillary was in the original. Ashley's whole story is kind of like, just like before, she was kind of like ignored because she was the youngest child. And usually the youngest child gets babied, but she was literally ignored for a lot of the time. There was even a time where they were pretending to not notice her, and it was kind of like in her dream or whatever. It was like a dream. But we don't even get that whole sadness you would get from being left out. Everybody else has all these things, and then Will coming in, she doesn't even act like that even matters to her. Her position in the family now that Will's here. That's not anything on her mind. Ashley was a huge misstep. Like I said, when women are not treated with respect when it comes to the writing or when it comes to the directing, and they have nothing to add to the story, why are they there? Why are they there? Get women who know how to write women. Don't just get someone on the street and then they do a bad job and then you say, well, we tried to give women a chance. Now it's the men's turn when it's been the men's turn this entire time. You freaking lunatics. Ashley was written terribly. Her gay bisexual sideline story is very much so sidelined. Doesn't matter. We saw Carlton snort up cocaine more than we saw Ashley at all on the screen at all. Why? Why though? Dumb. Unacceptable. I take a point away for Ashley because not only is her story doesn't even matter. The story that you did try to make about her didn't matter. It just didn't. You didn't care. No one gay is probably in the writing room to even make what that would feel like to be rejected, or to even talk about their feelings with their sister who didn't know. They just kind of do this thing real quick and they say, oh, well, pat on the back, LGBT, pat on the back. Like, that's not how you do things, and that's not diversity. But you can pretend like you're doing something because that's what you've been doing. Anyway, I'm done talking about Ashley. Disappointment. Y'all don't know how to write women. That's the only reason why. They all suck. Let's talk about the suckiest woman of them all that you've created. Vivian Banks. Now, it would be hilarious if they switched out the actresses midway of however long you're going to make Bel-Air run. That'd be hilarious. I know it's not going to happen because y'all probably going to get canceled. Not canceled as in that poor whistle that white people like to say and say that they're canceled. I'm talking about canceled off of the air. Vivian Banks from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a very strong woman who had a strong husband. There were a lot of disagreements that I had with the relationship, but first and foremost, she was a good mother, a good person, and she was very well educated. This new Vivian, who is dark-skinned, told her husband she wanted to struggle, didn't want to be rich and didn't want to be taken care of, but wanted to struggle. And it just let everybody on Twitter have a fest about, see, this is why women ain't us. And then when I literally call them out for being a sucker. And looking up the only reason why I know who wrote the script is because I literally had to look it up after some idiot is going to talk about this is why women ain't S. I said, first of all, you dirty piece of garbage. You useless piece of garbage in our society. This script was made by a man. This story was created by a man. This character was written by a man. The only thing she did was execute his vision. What do you mean? And then when I'm done saying that, he's going to say, can't take a joke. Everything is serious until you get called out. Then it's a joke because you are embarrassed with yourself. Sit in it. Sit in it and own it. Stop saying things are jokes. It just makes you look weak. You are weak to say that it's just a joke when you know it wasn't. You know it was serious. You know you take that through your life. When you meet a girl, when a girl smiles at you, you think about Vivian Banks on a freaking TV show that's freaking fiction, that is based on something that's not even strictly based on it. It's only based on it in name, if at all. Like I said, Vivian Banks was strong, smart, educated. She would never say something out of her mouth to say, I wanted to struggle. Philip, I wanted to struggle. And another thing, she didn't say Philip until like episode 6. I noticed that Philip is what she called him a lot, but she called him Phil. It just kind of was strange to me that in Bel-Air she called him Phil so much. When she would say Philip, she would say Philip. You've got to get at the end or else it makes no sense. But whatever, that's a minor thing. The biggest issue I have with this new Vivian Banks is she said she wanted to struggle. And why would you tell your audience? And it's fake, but look at how people see it as real life. Why didn't you make this dark-skinned black woman have any common sense at all? And then she keeps talking to this light-skinned dude that I know she's going to cheat on Philip with. And everyone's going to say, this is why women ain't us. When this is coming out of nowhere. This didn't even happen in the show. There was never any infidelity that was ever discussed between the two at all. Any hope or any chance of any infidelity at all whatsoever. It was a strong black couple. And y'all are talking about this is black people's goals when this girl's like telling him in a hotel room after she just went and talked to a guy that she knows it's inappropriate talking to this dude about her stuff because she's like, oh, I felt like something. And then everyone talk about she's Jada Smith because Jada Smith don't do this, that, and the other. When you don't know her, you will never know her. And you will never even suck her toes. You will never be in any vicinity close to her to even say anything. So shut up about Jada Pinkett Smith. But yeah, Vivian Banks is terrible. She's the worst person on the show. She's the worst character on the show. I'm so sorry. I liked that we got to see the original mother, Vi, of Will Smith in the reboot. I don't accept the second Vivian as the real Vivian, so I'm just going to call her the second Vivian. It was okay to see her. I'm like, of course not. People said she got sick before it aired or before they were recording, and that's dumb. I think she could have phoned in her lines like y'all did when it was COVID time. She could have said I had COVID, but here I am. Of course not. Y'all didn't call her. I don't believe you did call her. I don't believe you wanted her here. That's why the second Vivian's here. It makes no sense. It's like you get a bunch of dark-skinned women on the show and then you forsake the one that made the show possible. Interesting. I'm taking a point off for Vivian being suckish. She's just suckish. And people talk about, oh, that's real goals. No, it's not. And I wish people would stop looking at horrible depictions of a black couple and saying that those are life goals. Her saying that she wanted to suffer is not something that you should think that every dark-skinned black woman wants to do, especially since that's the propaganda we have perpetuated years and years and years of being a strong, independent black woman. You can be a strong, independent black woman with another strong, independent black man. But you guys don't think there's room enough on a pillar for two people. And I know that's a lie, because if you want to talk about fake things being real, like I said, Vivian and Philip Banks were both together and they had issues, but there was never a time where she said, let me suffer, please, begging him for suffering when he said, I took care of you. That is so pathetic. Whoever wrote that, I hope you go to bed every night ashamed of yourself. Let's talk about Philip. Philip was not soft-spoken, and I know you got a dark-skinned bald man who's really skinny because a lot of the comedy he brought with his character, rest in peace, his actor passed away a while ago. He was a good voice actor as well. James Avery played Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but a lot of his comedy was driven by how fat he was, and that's not something that's suitable for today. So I understand if you didn't want to do that again. But this Philip is very soft-spoken, and even when he got mad at Jeffrey, which is someone I'm going to talk about real quick after I'm done with Philip, it just didn't make any sense, and everything about him, his demeanor does not say Philip Banks. And Philip Banks, like, skin tone doesn't matter because we all have eyes. We're not in the Garden of Eden. We're not blind to the senses. Everything matters. So when you change Philip to a skinny, dark-skinned black man and then change his demeanor, it would have been something different if he had been the exact same and screamed and did all that, because dark-skinned black man, dangerous, ooh, that's the thing that's perpetuated. But I just feel like he doesn't portray Philip Banks as even if someone who was calm. I don't see Philip Banks in him. He's a good actor, but I just didn't see Philip Banks in him. I didn't like his portrayal, and I didn't like what he had to work with. Now, Jeffrey is what we would have joked that Jeffrey was in the first one in Fresh Prince. In Fresh Prince, he was literally their butler, did everything, basically raised them, except now he's the house manager, supposedly, and he's a hitman and kills people, and it was really nice in the beginning. Literally, I think you started the show out really well. It ended horribly. Especially when he's like, oh, you're fired. And then he's like, I got too much on you. I'll just leave. And I'll be back when da-da-da-da, or whatever he said. Kind of dumb. Super dumb. Because he's overpowered. What just makes no sense. That whole you leave, but no, I'll let myself out thing was dumb. You just needed him out of the way because he's overpowered. That's what people do in video games. That's what people do in movies. When someone is overpowered, you write them out of the story. They're like, where'd Jeffrey go? Jeffrey, I think, only left the time when Will and Carlton gave him a lottery ticket and he thought he won the lottery. And then when he realized it was fake, it was basically just like rich people putting a carrot in someone who is not rich's face, and that he got offended, because that's, of course, terrible to do when you're rich and he's not. So he quit. I don't remember what season that was in, but if Carlton and Will did have butting head situation, but they were not fighting, and when they did fight, it was funny. It wasn't sad. They fought and it was sad. It was just like, this is just sad, honestly. And then Carlton playing the victim, it's hard to translate something that was laugh track comedy into something serious and dramatic, because a lot of things get lost, like the comedic quips that came from Carlton, or the unique situation he had when there was one more trust fund baby situation. It's just funny. It was just a funny thing, and Carlton is just sad now. But back to Jeffrey. Him being overpowered made no sense. I didn't like it. Didn't make any sense to me. There was no reason to do that. And honestly, I feel like Jeffrey was a miss. Like I said, beginning was great. He started out really well. But when he started meddling in his business, that was Will Smith's father. And that even, I thought Will Smith's father was literally, my mom hypothesized that freaking Philip was his father. But I'm glad that it was a separate person, because I was like, that would have been terrible. That would have been terrible. Because Vi and Vivian were arguing back and forth like there was something bad blood between them. And yes, they had issues, but there was also a bunch of other aunts that I thought were there, but it was just her friends. She just has these black friends that are all in a group and they're only seen in the group. And don't do that. Stop doing group stuff. This is not the Real Housewives of wherever, from whoever, from whatever. Okay? People are in different places at once. She could have had 2 friends here, 2 friends there, but this group of friends that just come and go, Vivian's friends, it's ridiculous. It's so annoying. It's just like background characters doing background character things. Never their own agency. And another thing, like I said, the aunts are missing. Philip's mother played a role in the first season, played a big role. And I just feel like there's a lot of things that went missing and that you kind of glossed over for the sake of making Jazz and Hillary have sex and freaking having Will's father come like 3 seasons before he's supposed to be here. Where do we go from here? He's on the top of the Hollywood sign right now or whatever. He's right next to it. Is he going to jump? Like, what are we going to do here? What do you go from here? Freaking Jeffrey is freaking out there somewhere with all their information because he fired him. How are you going to fire someone who's so overpowered that literally just killed someone on your command? How are you going to do that? That's why the whole Jeffrey versus Philip thing was dumb and not well thought out at all. I don't like how Jeffrey was written, and I wish if he was going to be so overpowered, he had more of a neutral standpoint. And yes, that could read a little bit like robot, but you were the one that made him dark skinned. You were the one that kept him as dark skinned and did not keep his whole reason for being there. You changed him into a hitman, and now you have to deal with it. It makes no sense that he's going to leave and just accept that and leave. He should have not have cared about who's his father was. And yes, he's got a son, but he didn't know he had a son. I don't think. Please tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me if I'm wrong about anything that is proven, okay? Because I know Fresh Prince of Bel-Air pretty well. And as far as I'm remembering, I think that he didn't know until he came. And then his son was trying to get money out of him, even though he barely had any money to begin with. He was extorting his father because he made him feel bad for not being in his life all the time. And I thought he was lying. I didn't even think he was related to him, but I think he was. But basically, like I said, with all the girls are written horribly, and I can't get behind any one of them. Not a single one. Not Hillary, not Ashley, because she's barely there. Not Vivian, because she's stupid dumb. And definitely not Lisa, because she's dumb stupid. How are you gonna, first of all, why did you make Lisa be with Carlton? And okay, here's the deal. There is a girl that this happens with, and I think it was Tyra Banks. The America's Next Top Model woman. I think he had a crush on her, and Will knew her from somewhere, so they were all like chummy, and Carlton was like, oh no. I remember that freaking episode. Like I said, everything would have been half of the problems stem from Lisa being in the story too early. The whole father being a freaking cop thing could have been with another girl, because you cannot go anywhere from here. She's already tripping. Will Smith is better than the Will Smith that we got in the Fresh Prince. And if she had to choose between this Will Smith and the other Will Smith, even though he lied about being in jail, what does it matter? He didn't kill anyone. He lied. Okay, but did he lie about anything else? And I'm not about for lying or anything like that, but literally look at the track record. Would you rather have Will Smith from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who was a womanizer, who had a book full of women's names who he slept with, like Blanche Devereaux? Or do you want the better looking Smith, who actually cares about women and doesn't treat them like objects in a book? Vi was the only one that measured up to who Vi was in Fresh Prince, because in Bel-Air, She was annoying. She was a tad bit overbearing, and thank goodness they didn't switch her into a dark-skinned black woman to just drive that home. She was always light-skinned, and they kept her light-skinned. Good job. Overall, Bel-Air sucked, and that's sad to say, because I wanted it to be good. But based on all that, it sucked to me. It started out really well, and then when I saw that Carlton was going to be a turncoat for no reason and doing drugs, which makes no sense. Hillary is still dumb and doing dumb stuff, but doing dumb stuff in a way that's not seen as dumb, but seen as like, I don't know, like what girls do when they actually don't, unless they've got low self-esteem. And they're actually stupid, because why would you try to struggle with when you are clearly rich? You are clearly rich. There's no reason to go run out there. Hillary would not sleep in no house with a bunch of other people she didn't know. She was sleeping in the pool house away from the entire family. I don't understand why you think that she's going to lay her head in a house with people she did not know. She didn't even want to sleep in the same house as her own family. That's that on that. Ashley's whole story, you tried to throw in some LGBT plus community stuff in there with no payoff for them. There's no payoff. She likes a girl, she doesn't like her, boo-hoo. That's all Ashley got. She didn't even get a decent enough story. And again, hire people who are of the groups you are talking about. Because it very clearly looks like this was created by a straight person who has no idea. Unacceptable. The Banks, terrible. And it was interesting because presence in a white neighborhood near the Trumps, near people who were rich, had something to do with their situation. When Will came, it was a culture shock to everyone because he was acting a certain way and they were acting like, oh my gosh, this is so, they got over it pretty quickly. But it was still a topic of conversation. It was still a subject that needed to be talked about. We don't even look at the people who are the neighbors. We just have Lisa, who shouldn't be here right now. And then Jeffrey. And then also another thing that I noticed was even in Fresh Prince, they had tons of people doing the yard. We would sometimes see them, but we wouldn't see them all the time. They would even reference the people who clean the yard or trim the bushes. But we don't see anybody that works for them. Because you're trying to make it seem like Black people have a different way of being rich. When everybody is rich and they get different things. That's what classes are. Each class has a standard of living. We should be able to have a conversation about Black people employing people to do things that they don't have to do. There was absolutely no reason in making Jeffrey 007 or just a freaking mercenary, but he could have still been the person that he was, the butler. There were other people. There could have been other people. Also, for anyone who doesn't think that colorism wasn't a factor before and now, you're dumb. I'm not going to have a conversation with you if you're not willing to understand what I'm saying. Because they clearly switched out Hillary for a dark-skinned Black woman specifically so that she could struggle and be dumb in a different way. There was no reason to change up anybody's skin tone. Everybody knows what everybody is. When they're looking for Batman, they know who to get for Batman. They think that any shade of color is interchangeable when it comes to Black people. People know what things in people are. They know what colors are when they need a white person. They know what people look like when they need an Anglo-Saxon of the Caucasus Mountain. It just seems very interesting to me that when we need somebody who's Black, any Black person will do, or they say that it's the right person for the job. But Hillary was very much so mismatched for this situation. I told you, everybody did a good job. Will's actor did a better job than everybody else. But the implications, because this story was created by a man, he knew the implications of making Philip Banks, as hostile as he was in Fresh Prince, to tone it down in Bel-Air. But he doesn't seem the problem with not allowing Hillary to be a human and make mistakes. He wants to make it seem like she's so hypersensitive and hyper acknowledges the social constructs of sexualization, and it's her mouthpiece that speaks this commentary, not actual actions that occur in the story. And again, like I said, she's sexualized for no good outcome. We don't see her gain any money. We just see Jazz looking down on her and then rolling around in the bed with her in the hotel like the tramp they're saying she's not, just to be blunt. Like I said, I didn't care how promiscuous Hillary Banks was in Fresh Prince. She was very sex positive, which made me angry when she could never get a man that she really wanted. And when she did, he died. That was another thing they did to her that was poor. But in Bel-Air, you had an opportunity to do good. And instead of doing good with the women, you dedicated all your time to fumbling with the men, not even doing anything except surface level things with the women, talking about, I want to struggle and let me go struggle outside and with a group full of people that I don't know and only see that group of people once. I'm a very sex positive person. I was really excited to see how you were going to make Hillary and how you were going to integrate how her sex life was on the Fresh Prince, and to see it just minimalized to not only not even going on dates with anyone, but going on date with Jazz, who supposedly has his own business. I don't see his own business money. In fact, wasn't he driving people up from Philly to this, that, and the other place? Did he know Jazz before he went to Bel-Air? Because he's making it seem like he doesn't know Jazz. Like I said in the beginning, if you've watched one episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you know that Jazz was with him on the basketball court. So, oh my gosh, there's a lot wrong with Bel-Air. It's not about things being different. It's about things not making sense. It's about things being real strange. Like, it's about things being talked about and then never talked about again. It's about do better. It's about write women better. If you're not going to hire them, the least you can do is write them well so that people don't be like, oh, that's why women ain't S. Yeah, the women that men write ain't S. Of course not. You don't try. You don't care. Like I said, it's clear misogynoir through and through. No matter how many social points you guys try to put in here to make it seem like you're woke or you actually care about the community, there still is a lot that you have no nuance on. There's still a lot that you have to learn. I'm sorry, this is a 3 out of 10. This is a 3 out of 10. Do better. The best redeeming quality about this show is the dude who plays Will Smith, and hopefully y'all figure something else out. I don't know how you're going to get out of this situation. I have no idea how you're going to freaking get out of it, but it is what it is.